Beth and I crossed paths at a bar. A nasty fight had gone down and someone hit their head on a stool or something. She practically glided through the crowd, placing her fingers on his pulse before declaring him beyond saving. As her hand trailed away from his neck, I watched a wisp of something follow before it dissipated into the atmosphere. It began with a hookup. Her ebony skin and tangled curls entranced me, deep brown eyes impossible to look away from. After following her through the back exit, she turned and simply asked, "So, are you going to kiss me or not?" We rocketed into heaven, a mess of hands and hair and lips against skin. She was gone when I awoke the next morning, but left her number for me. Several coffees later, we were officially dating. Smothering each other in affection, it wasn't long before she confessed that she was really the embodiment of death itself. Ravenna made more sense as a name all of a sudden, but I didn't mind. She was still the same girl I'd met at that damn bar. Nothing could tear us apart. At least, so we had thought. I don't know if it was my incessant curiosity about what she did and how it made her feel, or if it was my innumerable human flaws compared to her, or perhaps, now that I think about it, my insecurity. But one day, nearly 5 years after we started dating, she snapped at me for the first time. It was such a small thing, but it took me aback. Ravenna had never gotten angry. Frustrated, yes, but angry enough to shout? She had remained level-headed throughout every argument between us before. Startled and caught off guard, I spat something back only for the whole incident to rapidly escalate, insults we didn't mean cutting deeper every time they were voiced. From there on, our relationship spiraled downward, whirlwinding toward destruction until we finally crashed. "I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back." She stormed out on me, tears streaming down her face, and by the time I opened the door she had slammed, she was gone. I couldn't find her again. I searched all the places she usually sulked, all her favorite clubs and alleys, asking everyone who would listen if they had seen her. None of them had. I never gave up. I'd been preparing to propose before that awful clash. Maybe my anger issues had gotten worse, or I didn't realize that Ravenna was dealing with her own struggles. Either way, though, regrets would do no good now. 30 years later, I was still looking. I was hoping that when I developed breast cancer, she would come for me. I didn't even go to the hospital, desperate to see her even once more. She didn't come. I went to the hospital 2 years after I discovered the tumor, and their shocked reactions told me she should have. They took out the lump, and I left. I was 92 and my body, despite how hard I tried to stay in shape, was growing frail. I went for jogs but could barely make it half a mile. One day, when I collapsed on the sidewalk, I thought maybe then she would come for me. She didn't. Only the ambulance stranger called. I had to go to physical therapy for months to fix my broken hip. Staggering around with a walker at the grocery store was humiliating enough, but the pitying looks were worse. I was 126 when I grew so fragile I couldn't even walk. I had to be pushed around in a wheelchair, nurses and doctors silently marveling that I was still alive. And still, she stayed away. At 140, my first nurse had retired and I was assigned a new one. I begged her to take out my IV, but she wouldn't, and eventually I tried to myself. I passed out, but still, I opened my eyes. When I realized I was still alive, painful, rattling sobs tore through my throat. I coughed up blood, desperate to die. It hurt. It hurt, and I missed her. When I was 173, I had given up. I tried slitting my wrist, but I lived and received 5 liters of blood, an amount that would have killed a healthy young man. I wished every night that I wouldn't wake up, but still I did. Sometimes days later, but I always woke up. I had tried starving myself, dehydrating myself. All that resulted in my becoming almost literal skin and bones. All that was left for me to do was cry. By 199, my body had long since started to rot. God only knows why they hadn't thrown me out of the hospital yet. Probably because they wanted to run more tests on me. Why was I so long-lived? They wouldn't ever believe the truth. I was 200 years old. Only a few minutes before her birthday, I, for the first time in decades, opened my mouth and tried to make some use of my decaying vocal cords. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, my darling. Happy birthday to you. My voice was raspy and the words hard to distinguish since my teeth were long gone. A slight smile touched my lips, though. I hope my song reached her. Perhaps the day even my brain rots to nothingness. Perhaps then I will get to see her. Perhaps then she will listen to my apology. Please like and subscribe to Joe Black Stories on YouTube, and if you want him to read your stories, send them to joeblackstories@gmail.com.